Right. I mean, just whatever, your spirit has to move as far as writing, write it. A love story, even if it's not the love story you have, but the love story you imagine, girl, write it. Write it into fruition.
You know what? That is so true. I'm starting to notice that when I write things down, it happens. And
Really? Yeah.
so it's very powerful to write. And I've always tell my kids, write something, go write, draw something,
Exactly.
get because it will manifest. That is so true.
I mean,
That is
we
so true.
we have to be intentional with what we're manifesting in our life. You know, with what we want from our life. I think for some of us, just going by life just passively, not really being proactive, but reactive to everything that's happened to us because we're trying to play catch up based upon, sort of the circumstances of our life.
Right.
So write it down, put it on the vision board, whatever it is you need to do to manifest what it is you want and what you're looking for.
Do you have a dream board?
I don't. Some years ago, I was thinking about doing a vision board, but that's not my forte. So I write down everything that I want to do. So um, at the end of every year, I evaluate my life, what I've accomplished, and what I want to accomplish, and then I just go into the new year with some goals and things to work towards.
That's what's up.
Sometimes,
That's great. You
sometimes.
know, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say sometimes I check off a good part of the list. Sometimes certain things don't get checked off, but it just rolls over.
Right. I had some New Year's resolutions last year, right, in 2020.
Okay.
And I didn't accomplish those goals. And there was only two things, I swear, because I was like, I'm not into resolutions. I'm going to do like you, I'm going to do my thing anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the two things that I wanted to do, I didn't do it.
Oh no.
And what it was, maybe it wasn't meant to be, or maybe it will happen someday. But
Mm-hmm.
it was to pierce my nose and get a tattoo.
Really?
Yeah, and it didn't happen. Maybe because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
is why it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really my only goals. But I did accomplish a lot though last year.
Good.
But
Good.
the main two things I didn't even do.
Well, you know what? That's okay. Like you said, it was COVID, so getting a tattoo and piercings probably isn't the best thing. But I always
No,
find if it's something that you don't do at the time, it's for a reason, and that when it's time for you to get your tattoo and your piercing, girl, you gonna have them. You gonna get them.
right. And I didn't know what I wanted anyway. But
Yeah.
now I know what I want.
Mhm.
Now I know like how I want my nose pierced. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I didn't really think of all that kind of stuff before.
Yeah.
But so it actually gave me time to think about it.
See,
And so, and if I really wanted to do that or not, because I think I was just going off of like I just want to do something different.
we all have that where it's just like I want a new tattoo or I want a new like I just want something new and different. Girl, listen, I'm sporting a new haircut because I'm like, just a
It looks
change.
good on you. That's
Thank
like
you.
that's like your style. That fits you.
Thank you. But it's like it goes in line with just the piercing and tattoos. Like it's just if you want to color your hair, it's like a change. We just want to make a dynamic change to our appearance. For a try, I think there's nothing wrong with just trying stuff out and getting new stuff. I love body art and tattoos, so I'm excited.
Right,
I'm excited to see what you gonna get and how it's gonna look in the world. I'm excited for that for you.
right. Um, but when you like you said, just set your intentions and then being intentional every day, and then those things is what actually manifests.
Right.
Those things that you do on a daily basis, and so if you're not like making good use of your time every day, then that would also show that have been manifesting a waste of time.
Right.
So
Absolutely. And that you only have yourself to blame. And that's the thing. When you realize that you are the person responsible for wasting your time, you know that you have to do better. You have no choice at some point but to realize that.
right,
Hmm.
and so I'm just looking for a pen.
Oh, okay.
Make sure I can.
Well, if you want, you can record the Zoom. I'm not sure if you have it recording, so
Um,
just in case you
you
miss
know what?
anything.
I was looking for that option and I couldn't find it. So like,
Are you on your
where was
phone?
that? Yeah.
Go to. Let me see. I'm doing it. I don't know.
The pen off the table.
Never mind. I thought you could. I thought it should allow you to do it. There's a more button. Um, but it doesn't allow you. I'm not seeing anything.
No, it's just like disconnect the audio
Okay.
or
Well, never
yeah.
mind. Never mind. We gonna get it together. It's okay.
Okay,
the
hold on, let me grab a pen real
Okay.
quick.
No worries.
Not up. All right. You gonna clean it up? We should have just did that in the first place. All right. All right.
All right.
Back now. Only when you're trying to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was busy, right? Like my laptop be want to act so weird.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to give into this energy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to focus. It's like something like every time I get in front of this computer,
Mm-hmm.
it, I guess it has too much information because I feel overloaded, like my computer feels overloaded.
But that's how you know that you're on the right path and that you're doing the right thing. When a devil coming in trying to interrupt, your computer want to slow down and play games, and that's really how you know, because it's just like at any given moment, if you was online, looking up anything, because you could just, computer be working fine.
Right. That part. I can Google, I can find anything else.
Mm-hmm. Trust me, I
Um,
know. Listen, I spilled a little bit of water on my computer this week, and when I
Ooh,
tell you, I was like 2 seconds from crying. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I do not want to have to get a new computer." Like, I don't
right.
want to. But thank goodness I use a second screen already, and I have a wireless monitor, girl. Listen, my computer, the screen don't turn on to save its life, and I can't use the keyboard on the actual laptop, but it turned
That's how
on.
mine is.
Huh?
So that's how my laptop is.
Girl, I'm like, but it's a blessing because you say I already use a wireless keyboard and I already use a second monitor. So I'm like, hey, it is what it is. I don't need to buy nothing else, spend no more money, and just use it how it's working.
That's true. I was gonna get a wireless keyboard, and then I found out that this laptop has a keyboard on the screen, so I can use the keyboard
Oh.
with the mouse pad.
Oh, that's good. Hey, save money. There you go.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, right, save money because I was like, oh man, I gotta figure out something to do on how to work this.
Hmm. It's so
It's
crazy how computers are our lives now. It's like if you don't got your computer functioning and working properly, you're gonna be in a world of trouble.
pretty much. Uh-huh. Zoom this glasses. Praise God.
Hmm.
All right, just want to make these bigger. Okay, so thank you for your time. I really wish I could record this. You know what I'm saying? Only because I did want to post it. You know what I'm saying? I was going to edit it and everything. Um,
Well, let me see. Do you have screen recording on your phone?
Screen recording?
Yeah, can you record your screen on your phone?
Like if I turn my camera on?
No, it's a feature. Let me see, because, like, what kind of phone do you have?
It's a Samsung.
Oh, a Gal. I don't know about Gal. Let me see. So what I can do is I can record it from my phone, and
Okay.
then I can send you the file. Hopefully it sends. I've never done it before, but what happens is that it records just like whatever's happening on your phone right now. So
Okay.
I'll do it. I already have it set up. Um, and then I'll just send it to you. Hopefully I can send it to
Oh,
you.
that's like it's like a recording your conversations and everything.
Correct.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a new feature. I don't have an iPhone, but it first started with iPhones. iPhone users were doing it. And then my phone mysteriously had the function available a few months ago, so I said, why not?
I need to check my phone. I probably have
You
it.
probably
I don't
do.
know. I don't know. That makes sense, nowadays, you know,
Hmm.
oh my eye keep watering. On why people you know what? I just never like to do video chats with people because I just always feel like they're recording something. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, so I've never felt that comfortable with doing video chats with
Mm.
people. Um, because now that you tell me that you can record
Yeah.
just like right there off your phone,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
You just go. It's a function. I'm sure if you like Google it or something, like you'll figure, or you could just probably play with it yourself. But most phones, I'm guessing now have a recording thing. So, um, we'll make it work. If I can send the file, I'll send it over to you.
Yeah, we'll figure it out because
Yep.
it's like a cloud or something like that.
Yeah.
Google Cloud or something.
Yeah. Google usually makes it easy to send stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead and do it, and then we'll go from
Okay.
there.
All right. We're good.
It's recording.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so thank you, Nzinga, again for your time, and I'm just going to get right into it. So, who are you today, and how are you doing today?
Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And today I would say I am a more confident and clear minded person. Um, I am probably doing the best I've been just overall. Very clear about what I want, very clear about what I need, and I'm definitely not shying away from being proactive and advocating for myself. I never really wanted to, not say ruffle feathers, but I really wanted everything to just be calm and okay for everyone. But eventually, what that meant was me sacrificing myself and my own needs and my own comforts. And now I'm just more. If I was already bold and vocal before, I am that at like another level, a more authentic level and a more real level for myself, just navigating the world personally and professionally.
Definitely, I can definitely see that in you. Most definitely, from childhood to now, seeing you as an adult, it is beautiful. It's really
Thank
beautiful. So I
you.
appreciate you. And so, when did you realize that you were suffering from a mental disorder?
Yeah. So, because I don't want to mislead anyone, I don't have a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis, but what discovered maybe about 2 years or so ago was that I was functionally depressed, meaning
Mm,
I'm able to do stuff, I'm able to achieve things, and from the outer world appear that I'm fine, but internally my world was just not like I was not okay emotionally, just not happy overall, in several areas of my life, but because I can't, take a week off of work and go to a retreat or anything like that. I just worked through it, and I did other things that I enjoyed to sort of compensate for that sort of depression that I was feeling. So I I would say about 2 years ago. What years? We're in 2021, right? So maybe three
Yeah.
years ago. It's so hard to believe. So about 2, 3 years ago was when I first realized you're not happy. You're having a lot of emotional turmoil, but yet you're still being productive. And so that's what I like to say, that about 2, 3 years ago, just being functionally depressed and working through it. And since, oh, well, I'll stop there because I know I don't want to answer any future questions.
It's all good. That actually sound. You said you self-diagnosed yourself and with functionally depressed, and it sounds like that's a real thing, right? um, if you ask me, it's real.
Hmm.
Because I've been there,
Hmm.
and so just want to move right along. So, what are you doing now with your life when this happens? Like when you find yourself being functionally depressed.
Yeah. Well, I think that, right, and it's not a real diagnosis. It's not in the DSM-4, but I think that with a lot of mental health disorders, sometimes we not necessarily ignore them, but we don't know what they are, but we also know that we don't have enough time to address them, right? And so I think I fall into that category of realizing something's not okay, but also not having the time to really address it, right? And so, because of my background, I give myself some leeway of pinpointing what's going on. What does the DSM-4 or DSM-5 now say? So that's where I get that from. But as far as recognizing, um, the question was, what do I do, right? What do I do now? And so I manage my world very closely. I pay attention to triggers, things that happen, events that happen, things that people say. And I monitor them very closely to see what type of response I have, right? Do I have a physical response? Do I have an emotional response, right? Like, what is happening in the world around me? And is there a response that I have? And if there's a response, from my body, sometimes like my heart will, it won't beat fast, but it'll feel congested. Congested is the word that I use. Where
Okay.
I will, unpack that and say, okay, why am I responding this way to this particular event? What does it mean for me? And what can I do about it, right? So if it's having a conversation with someone, or if it's changing my environment, but it really became a mindfulness of just my entire being, and how I respond to certain, events.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Great response. You could be a therapist, by the way.
Well, but here's the thing, right? I'm clinically trained, right? So
Okay.
so I could literally be a therapist. That is, if I agreed with the way mental health services are applied in the state of California. I have my own personal and professional views on that. So I actually, like, I'm clinically trained, and I could go for my licensing. I just choose not to, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's up in the air for
Yes.
sure. Um, so now, how did you react or respond when you found out about this new condition? I believe you kind of answered it, but you can go a little deeper.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for a lot of my life, I just really, I did what was expected of me, and I've always done the quote unquote right thing. So I lived with an assumption that because I've done the right things the right way, um, that I should be fine. But the truth was, I was doing the right things. I was doing them the right way, but I wasn't doing them for the right reason. And so what happened was, I really had to have a face to face conversation with myself in the mirror and say, girl, this ain't working for you. No, you're not doing anything terribly bad. Yes, your life is seemingly on the right track, but again, internally, you're not okay, and it's not working for you. So I really had to have a come to Jesus moment with myself to realize, you know what? the picture isn't what I wanted it to be. There's a disconnect between the picture I created in my head and the world that I'm living in. Reconciling that, um, unpacking that, and making amends with that, and then just really going forward and saying this is where I am based upon the decisions that I've made. And now, because you want something different for your future, what are you going to do? And really being active in my life and being present in every moment and being present in every decision.
Yeah, it sounds like you were accepting your life,
Absolutely.
as is.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely. There's a level of acceptance that I think many of us we need to realize, right? We have to take responsibility, like you and I were talking about earlier with wasting time, right? We have to take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility for the time we wasted or the time we allow other people to waste in our lives. And once you're able to really, accept and acknowledge and accept, your, I don't want to say shortcomings, but yeah, let's just say shortcomings. I don't want to use that word, but we'll use that word. Like, the more you can accept and acknowledge your shortcomings, then what you can do is you can reconcile that and say, okay, that was where I was. I have a vision of where I want to be, and how do I get there, right? And there's a number of things. I believe in apologizing to yourself. I tell people all the time. I do it all the time. When I am behaving in a way that is not consistent with who I am and who I want to be, I have to apologize myself for behaving, you know, not in that manner. If I'm yelling at someone at customer service, right? Like, that is not who I am, and I need to be able to handle my frustrations differently. Just because you're frustrated in a situation, it doesn't give you the right to yell at someone, right? Or to cuss at someone. And so I feel like I'm getting off topic here. But really, the goal is being aware of who you are down to the smallest level, and really recognizing and paying attention who you are, because that is where the work is, and that is
Mm-hmm.
where you can start to grow. Without acknowledging, your bad behavior, without acknowledging the things that you've done that it wasn't right, it will be hard to genuinely grow to the next level that you desire, because you're not addressing sort of the root of who you are, right? They're based upon a set of patterns. Our life, we respond in the world based upon patterns, and you have to be able to acknowledge and see those patterns so that you can create a new set of patterns.
Correct. Right. Right. And now, where did you go for help? Like, did you go to a therapist or a counselor? Did you choose any one of those?
Well, here's the thing, especially being black, back in the day, growing up, we did not talk about therapy. Therapy was looked at as a negative thing. It was not encouraged, at least in my family. Like, I don't think like our parents ever talked about therapy and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
No.
And we've
Mm-hmm.
been through some traumatic stuff, even in our childhood. Um, and
Right.
so, and so, I agree. I believe that if you have access to it and you have the resources for it, I do believe that everyone should get some sort of counseling therapeutic services, because it can be helpful to have a neutral third party. As for myself, remember, I'm clinically trained, right? Like, I have a master's in clinical psychology. Like, if I wanted to, I can I can apply to get my intern number and start practicing, essentially, if I found someone to practice under. Um, so I actually have not gone to therapy in the traditional sense. And that's because I am very clear about the type of clinician I want. And in California, it's very difficult to there's a vast of resources of clinicians. However, the specificity that I want, it exists, but it's hard to find. And I just haven't invested in that. So I do a lot of self work. I have a community of friends who also are clinically trained. And so I use them sometimes, or we actually really use each other to really bounce ideas off and to really just go through that process. Because really, what a therapist does is they allow you to process what's going on in your world, right? They ask leading questions really for you to think about how you have been and how you can be better. And so using those modalities and using my community of folks, I'm able really to nurture and repair and recover um, fairly well within myself. But I believe also I'm a Christian, so I go to church, and so what can't be
I,
understood on earth, the Lord above
mhm.
God will definitely seek answers there. So despite my not actually going to formal therapy, I do believe that for those who have the resources and access, and I believe that it should be accessible, and I believe that it shouldn't be expensive. I do believe, especially as Black people, especially for those of us from inner cities who've dealt with a lot of trauma, a lot of community violence, you name it, should go see a
Mhm.
therapist. And I do believe
Mhm.
that it needs to be normalized. Um, I know the language, I understand, the practice of it, so I can get by without going to therapy. But for the many people who don't have the training, yeah, don't walk but run to see a therapist.
Right. Don't walk but run.
Yeah.
I heard that. And associations sound like associations for you is a lot. Um, that's helped you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. People can know that they can talk to their friends and family who's qualified,
Yeah.
and just that is alone is helpful. Just to be able to talk to them.
Right. And I think that because, and also I want to go take another step because yeah, there is formal therapy, but there's also community agencies that's doing self work. That
Hmm.
is not in a therapeutic context because to do therapy is it's its own thing. But there are life coaches out there that if you can find a life coach, there's spiritual coaches. So there is a marketplace where if you don't necessarily want to see a therapist, but you do want to see a neutral third party, they are out there. Um, and
I
then,
like how you said that, a neutral third party.
yeah. And then again, if you do have friends or family, right, but it has to be a space that is safe, right? A space that is trusted. Because opening up about like your deepest, darkest things, it's not easy to do. And not everyone is able to handle that, right? You don't want to dump your stuff onto someone else, which may then, traumatize them in some way. We want to make sure that when we are really going through sort of a therapeutic process, a cleansing, so to speak, that we are doing it within safe spaces and trusted spaces where the person that you are communicating with that they can indeed handle it.
Right, right. Yep. Just real quick for me, I like to talk to strangers because they don't know me and they don't really care, but they'll give their honest opinion and then they'll go about their business. And for me, I found that therapeutic is to talk to absolute strangers because they didn't care.
Hmm.
Um,
A lot. You know
so,
what? That is actually something that is very common. I've seen that before, and I actually recall being maybe like 8 or 9, and like this maybe 10, and this older woman. She was just talking. We were at the bus stop, over You probably don't remember by the food co over in the hill where we used to live. And she was just talking to me. I was like, lady, you are like 30. And I just didn't understand it because, like, it was clear that I was a child, no matter how tall I was. But, for her, I think, like you said, it's just she was able to just get it out of her head because
mhm.
sometimes we have running narratives in our head that we have to get it out. Um, I'm huge on writing. Sometimes you can't talk to someone, but can you write about it? How are you feeling? What's going on? Just getting it out of your head so that you can move on and separate from whatever that thing is that's grieving you is so important. So Talking to
Right.
strangers, if it's working for you, hey.
And that actually goes to the next question. So like, what type of self help did you do when you were going through the hard times mentally? Like, really, like late, 8, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're stressed out. Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Like,
There's a number of things. It really just depended on what was happening. I'll tell you this. I again, Christian, went to church. Can't say I grew up in church, but definitely was at church every Easter.
mm,
um,
right.
I I listen for God, number one. So God will either have me up late at night. Oh my gosh, if God wants to tell me something, he'll either have me up late at night or up early in the morning. I will probably have an attitude at both times because if I'm trying to sleep, like God, it is 4 o'clock, bro. What is we doing? But
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
listening for him, right? When he has me up at these times that are inconvenient for me, nonetheless, my heart and my head is open to seeing what it is he has to say, so that I can act on that accordingly. Um, but the practical in the world every day. Again, I'm big on writing. I'm a writer.
Mhm.
Writing is the best way for me to just get whatever I'm feeling, going through, out of my head.
Mhm.
It's super important for me just to and I may not even reflect back on it, right? Sometimes I'll reflect back on it, other times I want to get it out because I don't want to hold it. Because
Right.
then you because once you start to hold your anxiety, your depression, the trauma in, it really takes a toll on your physical body. And I don't want that. I also committed to maybe ooh, 10, 12 years ago of living a life of peace. Peace is very
Mm.
important to me. I like literally, there is nothing I won't do to maintain my peace. Within a healthy matter, right? Like, I don't
Mhm.
want anything imposing on me being able to live a healthy and comfortable life. Um, I can't do chaos. I grew up with chaos, and as an adult, I refuse to allow chaos in my life. And
Right.
and so, again, monitoring. It's an ongoing process. Managing your mental health, managing your wellness, it's an ongoing process that has to be monitored all the time. You have to take inventory and say what you want versus what you don't want in your life. You have to take inventory of how you're responding or not responding to certain stuff. And so it's an ongoing process. And for myself, I'm just constantly monitoring. I'm constantly monitoring how I'm responding to certain things. Is this event or what's happening around me consistent with who I want to be? And then if it becomes overwhelming to some degree, then I pull out my phone and I write. If it's something that's overwhelming and perhaps I want to share it, then I will talk to a friend. I'll talk to a close friend, and just and process it with them. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, the first thing for me is to get it out of my head, and then if I need to process it further with someone, I will. If not, I'll write it and leave it be. I also started doing like little video things because sometimes it's just easier to get on the phone, press record, and go.
Mm.
But processing
Right.
it and getting it out is so important to me because holding it in destroys, like, stress will literally kill you. Like, we think that, oh, stress is fine. There is healthy stress, but negative stress where you're feeling like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. We're in the middle of a pandemic. So whether or not you've lost your job, you have children, there's so much going on right now, a lot of negative stress that can literally kill you. And
Right.
I want to live a little bit longer.
Right. Absolutely. And so, what would you say to someone else who is suffering from the same as you? Like,
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
with anyone who is suffering from some form of depression, anxiety, overwhelmed with stress or anything like that, the first thing I would say is to choose you.
Good one.
The it's we do so much because the truth is we have to ask ourselves, is what I'm experiencing due to me and my life, or am I experiencing this because I am overextending myself in someone else's life? That was the question I had to ask myself. So choose you, first of all. Once you've chosen yourself, make a commitment to your wellness and your well being. So if you need to go see someone, you can see someone. You can see a clinician. There are community based practitioners that, you know, use tools that are similar to therapy but are not, therapy in the formal sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then start to tap into your life and monitor your life. You have to be able, again, your wellness is an ongoing thing. You don't go to the doctor and say, okay, well, I took my tests today and all my tests came back clear, so I'm good. And then you never return. No, you return to the doctor once a year, every few years, to check up to make sure that, again, you're still in a good, healthy condition. And we have to do that
Right.
with our mental health, right? We have to
Right.
constantly monitor, check in with ourselves. Our head and our hearts are with us every day. We're using them every day. And so you need to check on yourself regularly, once a week, every day, depending on where you are. If you're in a severe situation, if you're in crisis, every day you might need to check in with yourself. And then as you become closer to a place of more stable in how you want to be, then perhaps you can change it once a week, once a month, things like that. But you have to monitor yourself. You have to check in with yourself. And you have to, unfortunately, make hard decisions as well. When you're dealing with mental health, there are things that you'll need to do to prioritize yourself and your health that may, what's the word? That may, where other people may be offended, right?
Right.
For whatever the reason of their level of understanding. But even if that happens, you still have to love and choose yourself enough to know that, hey, this particular connection or this particular thing I can't engage with right now. Maybe never again, but for right now, I know it's not good for me in my life, and therefore I can't participate in that.
Right. Self love. Right. I love that. And so, what do you do? What do you plan on doing from this day to help maintain a healthy mental stability? You sound like you just answered it.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I do. And I think one thing that I've implemented, I
Mm-hmm.
would say over the last few weeks, is really speaking up for myself more, and not just accepting anything. For me, I would say, well, it doesn't hurt, so it's not that bad. But
Hmm.
I'm just going at this point. No, I deserve the best. Therefore, I'm going to advocate for the best. And if
Right.
this particular situation does not afford me the thing that I want, then I need to be okay with leaving that situation. And not letting it be a big old explosive thing, Either it works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, then being okay with leaving a particular situation. So for me, it's just increasing my level of awareness, increasing, my actions, right? Increasing sort of, how do I want to say, increase, let me think. I'm trying to find the right word, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But being more bold, I think what it is, right? It's if I'm already bold and I'm already outspoken, then being that more unapologetically. And it
Right.
doesn't mean being rude or nasty, because I'm not a rude or nasty person, but
No.
I have the right to want what I want, and that's just
Yeah.
that.
That's it. That's it. And you know what? I understand how you feel because when I do things, being a parent of three children, and then when I do something, for myself, sometimes I feel a little guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it's like, no, Sabrina, don't feel guilty because you did work for that. Your kids didn't work for that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like you have to, like you said, unapologetic. Ooh, would you say unapologetically? I ain't saying
Unapologetically. It's too many
I
G's
know
and
that.
L's.
And just, what I'm saying, put yourself first, love
Mhm.
yourself, and stop putting so much weight. I agree totally with you on that.
I mean, the old
And
adage goes, right? When you're on the airplane, the pilot tells you, or the stewardess, if the plane loses cabin pressure, put your mask on before anyone else's. And the truth is, right, and my heart goes out to parents, especially mothers during this pandemic.
hmm
Where
hmm
it's a lot. It is a lot being asked of parents, but especially moms at this particular time. And so, I know that historically being, mothers overall have felt guilty with taking time out for themselves. Oh, let me just get away from the house or the kids. But the truth is that if you as a person, because you were a person before you were a mom, you were a person before you were a
hmm
father, if you yourself are not okay, it's going to be difficult for you to parent your children in a healthy way, right? If you're not
right,
okay, your children, and it's not intentional. I don't think anyone intentionally sets out to be, not the best parent. But what happens is because you're not okay emotionally, your kids will suffer the effects of that in some way or another. And it's not fair to them and it's not fair to you. So, take your break and just know that, like, you deserve it, and you will, if Sabrina the person, oh, I did not D&D. If
hmm
Sabrina the person is not okay, then it's going to be harder for Sabrina the mom, They're this,
right,
you know? But you're okay. You're
totally.
doing great. You're doing great. And that's what you also have to tell yourself. I tell myself all the time, like, you're doing good. Like, it's not, you're doing good. We have to be able to congratulate ourselves. We have to be able to celebrate our small victories. We have to. It's so easy to speak to our deficits, but we have to reframe. I believe in reframing, and we have to reframe some stuff to make it feel better, but at the same time we also need to celebrate our
Right,
wins.
right. Now, when you say reframing, is that like changing your perspective?
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I mean, I'm literally the reframe queen. Like, no matter what's
Mm,
going on, I'll be like, was that really a bad thing or was that an opportunity?
right, right.
Because we'll say, um let's just I'm gonna just use a, you go to the store, you go to Target, right? We all go to Target, and you know what you need, and you go to Target and you get everything but the one thing you need, right? So now you're
hmm
upset. You get home, you go through your Target bag, and you're the one thing you needed. You could be upset, right? Most of us are upset. Like, darn, I don't want to go back to Target. But you go back, but then let's just say for you, you're a parent. One of your children say, "Oh, mom, I need something for a project." Well, okay, great. You're mad because you missed what you need to go at Target. But now let's reframe this and say, okay, well, it's an opportunity. My child needed something for school, or my child needed something, and I already had to go back. So now let me just go back and get those two items and be very clear about that, right?
Right,
That's
right.
probably not the best reframe, but it's something
But
that
I get
is,
what you're saying though.
yeah, something that was otherwise an inconvenience, or we're not pleased with, but taking a look and seeing what is the learning opportunity, and what is the benefit. Sometimes things need to be blocked because they need to be blocked. Oh, I was applying for a job and I really wanted this job and I interviewed well, but then when you hear back from the recruiter, they're not proceeding with you. Okay, well, that sucks. I really wanted that job. It's a pandemic. I really needed that job. But what if it is that God doesn't want you in that place? What if God has something better for you? You know what I mean? So you have to be able to take what's unpleasant and reframe it and be okay. I really wanted that job. Bummer I didn't get that job, but I believe that God has something else for me, so I'll be okay.
That is so true. Now, I love that perspective as well.
Yeah,
um,
probably better.
Both perspectives has actually been real incidents in my life.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, I totally understand. And once you hold on to that belief of knowing that something else greater is coming or something better, and it will, and it
Yes.
does.
Yes.
So, you gotta hold on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We only can see what's on earth and what's around us, but we're people of faith. When you know that God has something, it's like, all right, I only wanted a handful of Skittles, and God was like, girl, I got you a whole boatload of Skittles. It's like, I'll take the boatload.
Right,
you know,
right. Be happy forever.
right.
Um, so, how does sharing your story make you feel?
Sharing my story.
Yeah.
Um, I love talking. And I believe that we all have a story to tell, and I believe that when we share our stories, it helps other people sort of think through their lives, and to think through perhaps similar situations. So I love telling my story. I like to believe that I'm an open book, and I believe that, if someone has a question, I'm not afraid to answer it, because I'm good and I'm okay now. There was a period where I wasn't okay. And I'm sure there's going to be a period in the future where I won't be okay. It doesn't mean it's the end. It just means for a moment in time, I'm just not okay. And I'm anticipating that for the future. And so I'm planning now to be able to manage that. And I just think that when we stop being so afraid of rejection and being judged, that
Mm-hmm.
if we can share our stories, not only will it bring healing to ourselves, but it will also help and aid in the healing of others. And I think that collectively as a community, especially at Black people, then we'll be able to really come together in advance. I think that there's healing that needs to happen in the community, for us to really take dynamic steps forward.
Right. And I think that would help with the crab in the barrel mentality,
Mm-hmm.
once we understand that there's a ladder, we all can climb out the barrel. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to keep grabbing each other down. There
Right.
is a way out.
Right. And there's a way out for all of us. I believe,
Hmm.
sometimes people, they don't like sharing information. They don't like, sharing about themselves. And I'm going, well, how much more would you have if you opened your hand, right? No one can give you anything if your fist is closed. But if your hand is open, now you are prepared to receive and give.
Mm.
There's space at the table for everyone. Everyone has their own unique talents and gifts, right? What you can do well, I can't do well. What I can do well, there are things that you can't do well. And that's fine. And if we come together and if we pull our resources and we pull our talents, oh my gosh, like,
Right. Like that handful of straw, like the Skittles, right?
right.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's unlimited.
Exactly, exactly. So, I love, I'm just so grateful that you asked me to interview me and to be in a magazine and to really share my story, because I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know whose life is going to be impacted and touched. My prayer is that through my words, someone will gain some insights to who they are and will be able to grow to a higher level of themselves and to really reach for their own wholeness and wellness.
Right, right. And if you don't mind sharing about what you do, your website with the publishing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Hmm.
I am an entrepreneur, right? I'm a I'm a mental health professional by training. So like I said before, a lot of my work comes from um, a mental and behavioral health framework, because I do believe that it's important of knowing yourself. Um, if I got, project manager as far as working within someone else's company, but as far as myself, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm an author. And I also, so let me get my words together. So I have a publishing company. I completed and published my first book in 2014, which was a novel, a young adult novel. And so I self-published it, was looking for how, the way to do it, where to go. And that worked out fine. And then I worked on my second book, which was Who Made Potato Salad, Celebrating the Journey of Black Women. And as I was finishing up that project, as far as preparing it for market, I initially wanted to sign on with like one of these big publishing houses so that it could move, and sort of have that machine behind it, but ultimately decided not to, just because of the red tape and the bureaucratic process behind it. So as I was preparing to self publish again, God said, start a publishing company. And I was
Uh-oh.
like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And God was like, you've done it before. If you can do it for yourself, you can do it for other people. So I started Get It Girl Publishing in the fall of 2019. That's when God told me in October 2019 to do the publishing company. Um,
Okay.
and so what I do is we're elevating the voices of black and female writers. It's very important for me to really work with people who have a story to tell and and don't know where to go after they've written a project. So, www.getitgirlpublishing.com for more information there. You can always follow us on your social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Get It Girl Publishing. And so it's really just an opportunity to connect with the writing community. There are tons of independent writers out there, authors, and it's a great community to be a part of. And so what I tell people, my tagline is, if you write it, I'll do the rest. That way, give us a specific timeline, and you'll be able to find yourself, on any e-retailer, right? You can Barnes and Noble, Amazon, you name it, wherever books are sold, you'll be able to find yourself available.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still gonna reach out to you about that, um, for a story. I got
Okay.
some storylines over here, so definitely can use your service myself.
Okay.
And absolutely. So I do appreciate your time today. One more thing. Have you heard of NAMI.org? Are you aware of the website?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Very familiar with NAMI. So, actually, I worked with NAMI when I worked for a local organization. Um, do I want to say, yeah? When I used to work for San Francisco. I think about whether or not I say the agency. I normally don't say the agencies I've previously worked with. But I previously worked with San Francisco Suicide Prevention, and so NAMI was one of our partners. We did a lot of great work with NAMI, to help people keep people alive and well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I stumbled upon this website when I was going through my post trauma stress disorder,
Mm-hmm.
and I found it very resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
I've connected with them and looking forward to starting working with the chapter out here in
Yeah.
Nevada in the Southern Henderson chapter. And so they're doing great things, and I'm glad this organization exists,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have a counselor or therapist personally. I was just looking for information, and this was like the most resourceful site that I came across. And so I definitely encourage everybody to take a look at the website,
Yeah.
get involved. There's many ways that you can get involved.
Yeah. NAMI.org, I think is their website. They're an
Hmm.
amazing resource, serving really the United States. No matter where you are, there should be a local chapter with resources available. And it's a good place to just get started, get yourself on the way. So I'm so glad that you found them, and
Too.
hopefully what other resources you found, for yourself and for your children. It's all so important to manage yourself. It's like a car. Our mental, you have to manage it like you would your car. You go get your oil
Right.
changed every 3 months. You have to get gas in your car whenever it's running low, and we have to make sure that we're filling up ourselves, and that we're checking on all of our major, mental, emotional, functions.
Right. Right. Because a lot of our, as an adult, we find that a lot of our problems come from our childhood issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's a lot of it. is the reason why I've been doing a lot with my kids as well. Is because I know we all have been traumatized
Mm-hmm.
just because of what I've been through personally. So um, it made me think more about their mental, and helping them um, not or see themselves different, change their perspective because we did, go through some trauma.
Right.
And so, it made me look at them more and help them. I want to know what's on their brain. It's like literally, I'm like, what did you dream last night? Like, I want to know so that, that when they get older, they can say, like, yeah, I went through some childhood issues, but we've also worked through them,
Right.
so they'll know how to work it as an adult. Because me as a child, like you said, going to church as a child, it has helped me as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
being that I did go to church when I was younger and it helped me out in my adulthood. And
Right.
so, you know, getting it, like you said, go to the root, get the root of it,
Right.
getting the root of the problem, and finding different ways to cure this problem
Mm-hmm.
that you have within yourself, because everybody's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's problem is different, and
Right.
so.
And right. And I love what you said, right, as far as being a mom now and recognizing, okay, growing up, you had some tools. That tool really was the church, understanding your spiritual life and your connection there. But as a
Hmm.
mom now, really talking with your children and really unpacking sort of their experiences. And that is
Hmm.
so huge and is so important because you're right. You're preparing them to really go throughout life and really being able to articulate themselves and to feel comfortable with communicating when things are right and when things are not right within them. We grew up in a generation where the trauma, our parents was like, you're fine. It's like you've experienced some things, you've seen some things. Our parents didn't talk about it with us. They may have talked about it with each other, but they're not talking about it with us. They're not talking about how we experienced it, how we feel from it. And so I think the assumption, which was not the best assumption, and I get that generationally there were things at play, but to think that we wouldn't to think that we weren't impacted by some of the stuff we experienced was just a misstep. And like you said, a lot of it coming from our childhood, where when we, for some of us, it became a survival mode type of situation. And so we're making decisions based upon our experiences in childhood because that was the way we thought it worked. To where, as we now are getting older, we're realizing that our responses to things are not working for us anymore, and that we now must learn new tools and new coping mechanisms and new strategies for engaging with the world. So, I mean, you're giving your children a gift that is worth more than, silver and gold, essentially, because they'll be able to identify emotions within themselves. They'll be able to communicate those. It took me a long time to identify emotions. People say, how you doing? And the answer is fine. The answer, whether I was fine or not is indifferent. I just knew that the prescribed answer was fine. And I also knew that if there was something that I had experienced in the household, I dare not tell a soul. Um, and so I lived like that, and many of us live like that. And then it just comes to a point where it's not working, right? And I think that a lot of our mental health coming from community and systemic is so hard, and
Right.
we have so much to unpack.
Right.
And I just think that our generation, our era, I like to say that we're the golden age because we are really,
Hmm.
we're bridging so much and we're holding so much space and we're compensating for the things that our parents didn't know, and yet we're providing our children with the tools we wish we had. That is a huge responsibility and a huge burden
Right.
for our era of really trying to, number one, be okay, but also collectively move the culture forward.
Right. Right. Um, you said so much. I just, I was about to say something like, okay, so it's all good though. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean it's a topic that has not been talked about, and it's needed.
Hmm.
It's absolutely needed, and with raising the kids, you know, you can't point fingers because you have to look at how they were raised and then what was going on and what was not talked about. Like
Right.
this is the information stage. People weren't talking then. They were like you said, shushing everything under the rug
Mm-hmm.
and making sure your hair is pressed and
Yes.
it's cool to look cute. You know what I'm saying? I love fashion. That's my passion. But at the end of the day, who is that person?
Right.
Um, at the beginning of the day, who is that person?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, monitor your emotions every day and all
Yeah.
this good stuff. And when you don't grow up like that, and then that's what I was gonna say, you don't grow up like that, and then it builds and builds and builds, and that's what I call you pop your top.
Yep. 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 Absolutely.
You don't want
Absolutely.
your top. You pop your top, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And then that's when you realize you had a lot of childhood issues
Right. Right. Right.
after you done pop your top.
It's like you didn't realize it until that top is popped, and it's like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, then what is it? It feels foreign. Where do you go? Who do you talk to? So yeah, it's a lot to reconcile, and so
Mm-hmm.
for everyone, for all of us, just being patient with yourself and giving yourself time to
Right.
really. To hopefully you don't have to pop your top, but maybe you're starting to
Yeah.
feel pressure. If you're starting to feel some pressure, then you definitely want to check in and loosen that top to let some of that out. But yeah, I don't, our parents' generation, that's the thing. People only know what they know, and they were fighting other things, and so you can't really blame people. You have to. There's a level of grace that you have to extend, and a level of understanding of saying, they really did their best. It just, they did their best.
Right.
And now that we know better, we do better, right? Our parents did our best, and now again, you and so many other parents that I know are raising their children completely different. So many people don't whoop their kids, and I be like, and I obviously don't have kids, so I'm still rooted in how I was raised. I'm like, you don't go
you know,
smell your
I
child.
mean, because if you're talking about, changing the dynamic, changing the perspective, and being that it's the information stage, it's like it's not enough to just
Right.
whip somebody and say stop. It's like, no, tell me why you want me to stop, and then I'll consider it. It's like you know what I'm saying? Like these children, they are human beings as well. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? We just tell them, we just think that we're just supposed to tell them, like, no, like give them the information so they can understand why
Yeah.
you said no, so
Right.
that they'll know the next time what the consequence is when they think about doing, because they will think about doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and in this time you gave them some ammunition to why you shouldn't do that, because it's a trickle down effect. Like maybe by the time you hit high school, you're gonna be a horrible person.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's start now to change those just little bitty things that you
Mm-hmm.
can do, and like you said, it goes with monitoring every day.
Yeah. You know what? And what you're doing, and what so many other parents are doing, is you're giving your child the agency to be their
Mm-hmm.
authentic selves, right? Instead of being who they think that their parent want them to be, you're giving them an opportunity to be themselves. So you don't do that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that because XYZ, right?
Right.
And if you think about doing that again, here are consequences for that. And that consequence, again, doesn't have to be, a smack or a whooping or something like that. So I mean, again, I'm actually loving this generation of parenting because not only are we reconciling our own trauma and working through our own stuff, we're also extending it to our children and giving them an opportunity to be very present. It's super important. It starts now with the kids. The future generations are going to be okay because our generation has figured it out.
That's so true. That's so true. It's like we don't. This is not the generation of deadbeat dads. We're
Yeah,
not of that generation. We actually have daddies that's doing their job.
right.
You
Oh,
know, and so we're change. Things is changing,
hmm. Oh yeah, I
and it's
mean dads are for real. I think I read something where like black dads are the most
amazing.
engaged group of dads. Like if you're a black dad, you're engaged more than likely with your children's upbringing than any other ethnic group in America.
Look, I'm a mother, and I know for a fact that fathers have such an impact on their children, and it's so powerful, um, how much their presence, changes their life, changes
Yeah.
their perspective, even if it's just, even if you're not there all the time, but a phone call, phone calls, regular, love, they're stern, just who you are, because it
Mm-hmm.
helps mold them to figure out who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, they're 50% you too. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? We're 50-50 on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So once they know both parents, but especially their dads, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Something about dads and their strength is
Mm-hmm.
just, it just helps with the discipline. Being a single mom, even in my home,
Right.
being my kids, knowing their dad don't tolerate certain things,
Mm-hmm.
so it keeps them in check in my home,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Right. And
So it helps.
and also another thing, right? You talk about the co-parenting, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're talking about. The
Right.
ability for two adults who said, okay, yeah, our relationship didn't, it's not, it hasn't, the relationship itself, the life of the relationship
Didn't
just
work.
that ended. But
Mm.
the relationship as a co-parent and being able to really have those conversations and to really be able to communicate and figure out what the kids needs is super important. It like I said, you're a mom. Your kids know that their father doesn't play about certain things, and so that carries over into your household. And like, kudos for you and every other mom who's like not using their children against their fathers, right? Like, understanding that whether the relationship lasted or not, it's about both parents really participating in the rearing of the child or the children, and both are
Mm-hmm.
equally important. The mother is no more important than the father, and the father is no more important than the mother. Both have their
Right.
role, and both are necessary.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it's really not about the money, because they have no sense of money. They have no respect for money.
Yes.
They don't. So it's like, train them up. So it's like, it's really not about the money. So if anybody put money in between their children, that's not the real problem. So they
Right.
need to go get a therapist.
Right.
I'm just saying, um, you know, co-parenting is, at the end of the day and at the beginning of the conversation, is about the child.
Right. 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 And that's all it is. And that's all
And
it
fathers are
is.
really great nowadays. I think they're really great because of the history of the not so great baby daddy industry. We had
Mm.
songs, "That's just my baby daddy," you know what I'm saying?
Woo.
Like, there was a whole generation of horrible fathers,
Right. And we was
you
doing the
know.
butterfly. We
And the moms just struggling
Mhm.
out of the wild Uzi, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Just struggling. And now the dynamic has changed, even if it is a single parent and a single father, in two separate homes. As long as they're responsible people taking care of their children, there shouldn't be any problems,
Right.
If there is a problem, that's an individual thing.
Hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree. Again, I have to be honest. I'm also part of the Don't Have Kids Club, but I see it and I'm around it enough, and it's super important, and it is so lovely to see the co-parenting and each parent, showing up,
mhm.
showing up, so
The
we.
best way they can. It's not like one parent is better than the other.
Hmm.
It's being the best parent you can be. You
Exactly.
know,
And that's all
it's
it
like they're a
is.
person.
Because we're just people. We're just
Hmm.
people who happen to be responsible for littler people.
Right?
It's like, oh, okay, now I have to make sure that you stay alive and fed and stuff every day. Right? That's a daunting task. To me, it sounds very daunting. Give me a plan. Um, so yeah, no, but it's so important all the way around, and it's good, that I'm happy, you and so many other mothers and fathers just have working relationships and keeping the children's needs and their mental health, because they're absorbing all of that. It's starting now. They're molded early, and what they experience now will really determine how they transition into adulthood, and hopefully they'll be able to transition well with very little emotional stuff, right? Not saying that
Right.
things won't happen,
Baggage.
not saying that they won't experience life, but like that stuff that just weighs you down. We don't want people transitioning into adulthood or staying in adulthood with stuff that weighs them down. The goal is to get that stuff off of you, learn how to unpack and process it, and then learn how to make meaningful steps in a direction for which you can grow.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, and think I do appreciate your time today. That has been all. And if you have anything else you would like to share,
No, just follow me on Instagram, Twitter, um, at Nzinga D. So I'm on Instagram at Nzinga.D and Twitter at Nzinga_D. And if
okay.
or vice versa. I never know. It's Nzinga.D or Nzinga_D on Instagram and Twitter. Follow me. Follow Get It Girl Publishing. If you have a story to tell, if you or someone you know are looking to get published, contact us. We are looking to work with new authors every day. And thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And that's it. That's it for the day.
All
And
right.
so, um, once you send me the copy,